unkind, friendly, your worst enemy, charming, crass, and potentially dangerous. Have you ever heard of such? I'm invisible and impossible to touch.
What's up, it's your boy, I know Mercy the Mad Hatter. It's Halloween, or at least the month of Halloween again, and I actually wanted to do something this year, so I'm gonna be making a few videos this month, all generally Halloween themed or horror themed, and I figured I'd start this month off about 2 weeks late, admittedly, but still, doing another one of my comic reviews, something I really haven't done in a while, and I've been meaning to do again. And this time, I'm doing Hellboy again. This is actually a Hellboy comic that I've never read myself yet, but it's one that I've been meaning to read for a while now, and it is the inspiration for the movie that just came out. So it's at least better than that. So I still haven't seen the Hellboy movie, but it's really fucking bad. So I figured this is a better alternative. This would be the Wild Hunt storyline. I already know a little bit about it. I know that it leads into the Hellboy in Hell storyline, which is essentially the end of the Hellboy mythos. But I really wanted to get into this book and really find out exactly what happened and all of that. This one is a little longer than most of the other books that I've covered. They're usually about 4 to 6 issues long. This one's 8, so I'm gonna have to condense things a little bit more. I can't be as rambly as I am in usual videos, so let's get right on into this one. Okay, so the first issue starts off a little weird, but then again it's Hellboy, so that's understandable. It starts off in Italy. Hellboy is staying at this house with these 2 old women, and some dude on a bike leaves a message for Hellboy, and then it cuts immediately to Hellboy walking through this forest, and it's the funeral for Dagna. I think that's his name. Dagna actually is a character that we've seen before. He was in the second Hellboy storyline, Wake the Devil. He's shown up every once in a while just to sort of, I guess, keep tabs on Hellboy, because he's the beast of the apocalypse, is gonna end the world and shit like that. So I'm guessing you would just like, I want to see what this is going, where this is heading. But Hellboy is brought to his funeral, but Hellboy himself doesn't actually know him. I don't think Dagna's ever actually introduced himself, and Dagna is actually really important because he's a king, a fairy king of the Tuatha De Danann. And if you don't know anything about Celtic mythology, that's probably really confusing. Basically, it's it's not important. It's a whole thing. I don't have time to get into it right now, but Hellboy is at this funeral. There's a couple other people there too, and a bird actually tells Hellboy that Dagna was murdered by his son, I believe. But he has a couple of sons. None of them really want to take his father's place. They're all either gonna die or just go away. So the fairy kingdom is kind of stepping away from the world, and he mentions that, and the bird mentions, because of that's a talking bird, of course, the talking bird. The bird says that we're all kind of fucked because the fairies aren't gonna help fight what's ever coming. There's a war coming. And that's all he says. He just says that there's a war coming. Bye. It just flies off. And right at the end of the funeral, he actually sees a woman who he identifies as Alice. And if you've seen the movie, first of all, I'm sorry, but you know that Alice is really important. But then he wakes up because this all happened in a dream. And he's staying in the house of these two old women who are actually ghosts. Because it's Hellboy, of course he's rooming with ghosts. So they give him the letter, and it tells him to go to this place in England. And he actually, it has one of those wax symbol things, and he instantly recognizes it, and he's just like, yeah, fuck, not these guys again. But he goes, and it's these British aristocratic assholes, and Hellboy has actually met these guys before, like 50 years ago, but they haven't aged a day. They haven't aged since he last saw them 50 fucking years ago. So there's something going on. There's something weird going on here. These guys are actually part of a group called Wild Hunt, and which is obviously the title of the comic. The Wild Hunt hunts giants, basically. Basically that in 1402, the last giants in England was killed. But the thing about giants is that every once in a while they come back to life. So the wild hunts were, and like one giant isn't that big of a deal. Like you can, especially nowadays with today's weaponry and armaments, like you can kill a giant no problem. But like 3 or 4 giants, that's a fucking issue, you know. So these wild hunt dudes get together whenever like multiple giants decide to wake up all at once and hunt them down. The problem is that there's over in England alone there are over 8 giants, and there's more in like other northern countries. So like something weird's going down. Shit needs to be sorted out, and the Wild Hunt dudes are all in favor of it. And what's actually kind of interesting is that Trevor Broom actually participated in the last Wild Hunt in 1943. But he never mentioned this to Hellboy, and he only mentioned these Wild Hunt dudes themselves, like, very sparingly. Which, like, when you read it, you kind of get why, because these guys are kind of assholes. It's a thing where only people who are, like, aristocrats, you know, those sort of guys, only they can participate in the Wild Hunt regularly, but they often bring in a guest to help them do the thing. And Trevor was the last, and Broom was the last one, and Hellboy's, yeah. So, apparently, they have like an oracle or a fortune teller or something that sort of tells them where the giants are going to be. And there's this big, huge thing, so they go out there all together. But before it gets to the hunt proper, it switches over to, I guess, who our bad guys are going to be. I guess Dagna dying sort of left a power vacuum in the magical realms, I guess, or whatever, because like all the supernatural shit is like, well, we don't have a king now, what the fuck are we gonna do? And this pig dude, Graugotch, I think that's his name. Graugotch, he has like this box, and he says like, we're gonna wake up this queen chick, and like, oh well, is that a good idea? I mean, we got fucking giants. And he's talking to a hedgehog. And he has I'm gonna say a goblin. I don't know what the fuck he is. Like a goblin is backing Graugotch up, and he's talking to this hedgehog, and he's like, well, fucking giants are fucking giant. Like the hedgehog fucking hates giants. I guess I don't fucking know, but like he's going off like fucking giants, pieces of shit, like what the fuck are we doing with them? Like, well, like this queen, she promised the giants that they could have their land back, and like she's making good on it because we're gonna bring her back. Like, well, fuck the giants. What? Like we need a fucking ruler to rule all of us. Fuck the giants. Like, no, we gotta get the giants in on this. Now, the problem is, like, queen. Yeah, she was fucking murdered and chopped up into a bunch of pieces, so we gotta find her. We got one piece here in this box here, but we gotta find the other piece. Like, fuck the giants. Like, what? You know, fuck you. Whatever. And the fucking hedgehog leaves. So Graugach, he's like this pig dude. He's trying to find pieces of this queen, and yeah, it's Mila Jovovich's character from the movie. So yeah, um, but so that's like I guess that's the major B plot. It's gonna, or maybe it's the A plot. I don't know. Like the fucking Wild Hunt could be the B plot. I don't fucking know. But going back to the hunts, Hellboy talks to this dude who helped his grandfather out some years ago fighting some giant slug thing, but he had to blow up the house, their ancestral house, to do it. And the dude is pissy because, like, yeah, he blew up a house, but like there was a giant fucking slug monster there. And even Hellboy is kind of indignant, like, yeah, like what? You wanted the fucking slug house? I did you a favor, asshole, but you know, whatever. So they get to this bridge where apparently, like the old Oracle chick, said that the giants were going to show up. But then, like, I'm just gonna assume it's the same dude that he was talking to. Stabbed Hellboy through the chest with like a lightning rod or like some kind of electrical thing. And, like the head of the hunt, like this dude with the giant fucking deer head on, like because that's just like fucking tradition for these assholes. Says we're not gonna let a demon sit on the throne of England. It's like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? In the electrocute him, and that's how that issue ends. And it makes sense, actually. like if you've never read a Hellboy comic, this will come completely out of nowhere. But like I said, this is sort of the culmination of a bunch of different stories. Like it's leading up to the end of the Hellboy saga, and there are actually a bunch of references to other stories that have happened, Darkness Calls, the last issue, and the last miniseries, and a few other before that. So, and this whole "we won't let a demon be the king of England" that is also a reference to our earlier story where it's revealed that Hellboy is a rightful king of England, technically speaking. Yeah. So, but I don't think Hellboy completely realizes that, and even if he does realize it, he doesn't care. Like, he's not going to try and take the throne of England. He just doesn't care about that type of shit. He's just like, I want to fight monsters. Like, that's what he's good at. That's what Hellboy is, like, that's always kind of what I've loved about Hellboy. He's a simple dude with, like, an extraordinary destiny, but he doesn't care. Like, he's meant to do all these amazing things. He just wants to chill out, smoke a cigar, drink some beer, and, like, just be, you know? So, that's always kind of been the appeal of the character for me, personally. But this is, I mean, it's a fucking it's a Mike Mignola pen Hellboy book. Of course it's gonna be good so far. So, apparently the pig dude was an elf. Okay. So this issue pretty much starts off exactly where the last one left off. Hellboy gets speared through the chest by some electronic lightning rod thing. Those Wild Hunt douchebags are trying to kill him. And while they're frying him, he has sort of a vision where I think he goes to the tomb of King Arthur. Because, like, there's a bunch of dead statues, and there's a dead king sitting on a throne with a sword, which is obviously Excalibur. But then a bird, I think it's the same bird from Dagna's funeral, although I'm not entirely sure. He shows up and wakes Hellboy up, and he finds out that not only is he not getting electrocuted anymore, all the dudes from the Wild Hunt are dead. Yeah, apparently that seer chick was right. The giants were going to cross that bridge that they came to, and then they showed up and killed all of them. Like every single one of them. Because there's a lot of fucking giants there, actually. But they ignored Hellboy because he had this, not sure what, it was a flower. I think it was a lily, although I'm not sure. in his clutched in his hand while it was still knocked out, and it was actually the bird gave it to him because the woman who owns him like sent it to him to keep him invisible and like keep him safe. And as long as he's holding that flower, he's completely invisible to the giants. So so the bird tells him that he has to follow him to his mistress, and she'll explain. Like I'm sure she'll explain what the fuck is happening. But Hellboy, being Hellboy, he decides to test out the invisibility and walks through all the giants, still snacking on the wild hunt dudes. But then at some point, he's just like, you know what, fuck it, I want to fight these guys. He drops the flower, all the giants spot him, and they start fighting. And he's Hellboy, so he kicks their ass. Or at least he's starting to kick their ass. Like, they get a couple of good shots in, and it actually cuts off there. It goes back to the pig dude who was still with Queen Chick. And I was actually wrong. He wasn't, like, she was cut off, but they don't have to find her. Like, they don't have to find her pieces or anything like that. So an old dude comes up to him and asks, "Are you Graugotch, the elf?" Like, cause, like, the last, like when the giants were still around, like, a bunch of elves actually helped fight them off, and Graugotch was actually one of them. But he fell in love with a human woman, and she wanted to know about, and she wanted to see him transform it. That was one of his main powers, being able to shapeshift into other things. And like at first, I thought he was going to say, "Oh, I transformed into this pig thing," but then something happened, and now I'm stuck. But no, it's actually way more complicated than that, and honestly, kind of cool. Like usually I feel like when a story that could be more simplified is stretched out and made more complicated, it's not a good idea. But in this case, it actually is an interesting story take that they go with this, because Graugotch transforms into the same giant monster that he used to fight all the giants, and he tells this chick that he's into that if you scream, I'll lose all my powers and go away for some reason. Even he can't, like, it's funny because even he can't remember why this happens. He just knows that it will happen. So, of course, it does happen. But not, like, this is why I think it's kind of clever, because it's not the way you think it's going to happen. Like, you read it and you think, oh, he's going to turn into a giant monster, she's going to freak out and scream, and he's going to be, whatever. But no. What happens, and this is actually kind of clever, what happens is that he transforms into a giant monster. She doesn't scream, but she's like, he can tell that she's scared. So he turns into a songbird instead. But on the branch that he's sitting on as the bird, a cat is right beneath him, and the woman is worried that the cat is going to attack him. So she yells to warn him about the cat. But she still technically screamed at his transformation, so he's fucked. Like, I kind of like that, because it's not, oh, she's an idiot because she didn't know what she was really getting into. Because you see that a lot in old fairy tales, like all the goddamn time. Like someone who thinks they know what's going on, but or just like makes a really poor decision. This is technically that, but it also isn't, because she yelled because she was worried about his safety. But it was still technically yelling at his transformation. So it's like, I've always loved these weird magical loopholes like this that can either completely screw someone over or get someone out of getting screwed over. Like, I always love stuff like that in Magic. So yeah, he's fucked. Just sort of wandering I'm just gonna call it the Needle World. Just sort of wandering around the Veil, not really sure what to do until he figures out a way to get back into the material world by transforming himself into a baby. And this is actually another great callback to a previous storyline called The Corpse, where Hellboy had to fight, not fight because it's a baby. He had to track down a changeling who had kidnapped the baby for whatever reason. Even dude's not sure why, but Hellboy comes in, brings out a piece of iron, and uses it to reveal, oh, that it's a fucking changeling, and that was Gralgotch. I almost forgot his name for a second, but that was Gralgotch, the changeling. But you know, as a like he had to go back, like he was kind of had to stick around Hellboy for a little bit, like and lead him on this journey to get the real kid back, and he actually. Like, I don't know if this was revealed in the actual corpse story. A giant monster who was a pig showed up and attacked Hellboy, and he actually ate the changeling. But then Hellboy, being Hellboy, he just kicked the thing's ass. But like I said, Gralgotch was the changeling. So when the giant pig monster ate him, he basically overpowered the pig monster's will and became the pig monster. But while Hellboy was fighting him, the pig monster shrank down to his current size, and Gralgotch has just been stuck like this ever since. and that baby was Alice, so he's been stuck like this for a couple decades at least. So Gralgotch is telling the old man this whole story, and he explains that Queen in the Box is like she claims that she can give Gralgotch his old form back, and he's just holding on to this hope that maybe she can, but he can't hear her anymore, so he's not sure. But then the old dude brings out a goblet and says that he killed every man, woman, and child in a nearby village and put their blood in this goblet. And then Gralgotch pours the blood into the box, and boom, Queen Chick is back. It doesn't say it in the book, but it's Nimue, the lady. I'm sure it's going to explain this later, but I'll get to that. So that was the end of the story, but the book actually keeps going for a little bit because for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why, it tells the story of a villain that was in the Darkness Call storyline called Kushki. I'm good. I'm just gonna put his name right there. So I'm not sure why it just started telling this story. It's a good story, it's a really interesting story. I guess I can tell it. Kushki, or whatever his name is, he was a normal dude, just average guy. He was a soldier, but all his captains were but he would spare his enemies every once in a while. But then his captain was like, "Why the fuck you doing that? This is fucking stupid." So they drag him out into the woods and beat him half to death. Then a dragon, of all things, finds him and makes him a deal. And apparently, this is a real Russian myth, and that's what I love about these Hellboy comics. They actually use real myths a lot of the times. So this dragon, he gives him a deal. If he works for him for 9 years, he'll save his life and shit so he does it. He just works with this dragon for 9 years. He doesn't ask too many fucking questions. He doesn't step out of line or anything or do anything stupid. And by the end of the 9 years, the dragon is like, you know what? I like you. If you stay here, I'll teach you magic, and you can become immortal. But then Koshige is like, no, I'm good. And Dragon is just like, okay. I guess it's no, I just want to live, I just want to be a dude. And Dragon's like, all right, cool. So he gives him a magic shirt that'll make him completely immune to all weapons. And he goes back to being a soldier. And he goes back to being the same kind of soldier that he was before, sparing people whenever he can. And then a king is like, you know what? This Koshiki guy, he's pretty fucking awesome. I'm gonna give him my daughter. And Dara's like, oh yeah, this is cool, this is great, but it's not. Like when he's not around, he's like, why? I'm a fucking princess. Why am I marrying a soldier? Fuck this dude. So she goes to like a noble dude, and she's like, okay, if you kill Kushki, I will marry you. My dad's old. He'll die soon, and you can be king. And it's like, okay, but like he's fucking immortal. How do I kill him? They're like, no, I know how to do it. He has a shirt that makes him immortal. I'll just steal that, and you can come in and do your thing. And that's where the book ends. It's like she steals the shirt. Some dudes come in with axes and presumably kill Kushki. Or not, I don't know. Like that's it. It leaves on a cliffhanger. I don't know why this story's being told. Because, like, yeah, Kushki was he was really important to Darkness Calls, but like, is he coming back in this story? I don't fucking know. Or maybe Mike is just like, you know what? This is a really cool story. I want to tell it. So, you know what? Cool. You know, I didn't think we'd be getting a 101 on witch politics in this issue, but here we are. So this issue actually starts out a little bit further past where we left off with Hellboy. He just finished beating the living shit out of those giants, and then he follows a bird into not his mistress's house, but someone who is also kind of working for, who the bird works for, Alice, the little girl who Hellboy saved from the Changeling. As it turns out, after that happened, the fairies sort of stuck around a little bit, although none of them tried to take her again. They just sort of hung out with her for a good deal of her life, and apparently stopped her aging. So the last time Hellboy met Alice, it was in 1962 or 63, but she barely looks like she's past 30. So that's a benefit. Turns out Hellboy actually checked in on Alice and her family for a few years after the whole Changeling thing happened. And her parents actually ended up really liking Hellboy, and Alice remembers... I don't know if she remembers everything that happened with Hellboy, but she does remember a fair bit. Like, she remembers him, at least. Just like the first issue showed, Alice was at Dagna's funeral, and she did see Hellboy there just like he saw her, and she kind of knew that would mean that he was going to be coming to visit her soon. And she actually met with the legendary Queen Maeve, who, well, she wasn't sure if she was a queen, but she had a kind of a funny line where she wasn't sure if she was a queen, but she looked queenish. And she does, so Alice actually takes Hellboy up to this hill where Maeve wanted to meet him, and explain that this war that the bird in the first issue mentioned was coming is kind of his fault, but also kind of her fault, at least she thinks that. So I already mentioned that Graugot, the elf-turned pig, kind of has it out for Hellboy because of the whole Changeling thing, and it was because of that being stuck in this pig body that he sought out. They still haven't said her name, but I'm just gonna call her Nimue. He sought out Nimue, thinking that she was actually the queen of the queen of witches after Maeve was deposed, because she was the first queen of witches, but then Nimue showed up, she became the queen, but she was a bitch, no one liked her, and a bunch of witches actually got together and poisoned her, and killed her, and chopped her up, and all that, and put her in the box. And surprisingly, a bunch of the witches that fucking did that showed up to Nimue's revival. Just all the witches that did show up, a bunch of them drowned themselves or went into hiding, because even the fucking witches who are not, like, generally speaking, the witches are not portrayed in a heroic or noble or good man. Like, witches are generally thought of to be evil in the Hellboy universe. The only major, like, there's only like a handful of witches that are good-ish, or at least not outright evil. Maeve is one of them. Hellboy's mom was actually a witch too, but after being, well, not raped because she gave herself to Hellboy's dad, like after being impregnated, for lack of a better term, by Hellboy's father, she repented and became, a woman of God, and she had 2 other kids who became a priest and a nun, and all that happened. So like, witches aren't inherently evil, but most of them are not good. So I think the fact that most of the witches in this universe are like, yeah, I'd rather be dead than work for Nimue again, kind of points out how fucking terrible this bitch is. So with Dagna dead, like I said, there's a power vacuum. Like, the supernatural creatures of the world need someone to lead them, and Gragat figured, you know what, like Nimue said, she can give me back my original form, so fuck it, I'm gonna go with her. And the problem is that he doesn't just want his original form back, and he doesn't just want revenge against Hellboy. He basically wants to kill all of humanity. And Nimue doesn't care who wins this war. She just wants as much bloodshed as possible, so things are just going sideways all over the place. And Maeve is like, okay, you don't want to be the Beast of Apocalypse, but you are a king. Your name, like, Hellboy's real name is Anung Unrama, which actually stands for He Who Wears the Crown. Hellboy is a king by birth. Like, he's the king of England because he can wield Excalibur. He's also the king of Hell because that's who his father was. So Hellboy is a king by birth. He doesn't want to be a king, but that's who he is. And Maeve is just like, okay, we need a king with an army to fight Nimue. So that has to be you. And because Alice considers herself part of this, Maeve is willing to let Alice be part of this whole thing. Like, if she feels she's responsible, she's going to let her not fight, because unlike in the movie, Alice, I don't believe, has any kind of combat training. And that's something I didn't think was necessary in the movie either, but I'm not gonna go too much on the movie. So Maeve gives her warning and then goes off to do whatever the fuck fairy queens do. And the story ends with just this random fucking goblin showing up. And that's how the story ends. So apparently the Krushki stuff are just backup stories. They're just stuff Mignola wanted to write about because fuck it. And so, fuck it, I'm gonna talk about them too. So Krushki's dead. Like, the dude chopped him up and had his 2 servants drag the bloody pieces off somewhere to be buried or eaten by a wild animal. A lot like how the story actually began. Except now he's just straight up dead instead of half beaten to death. But then the dragon, who he searched for 9 years, like, I guess he just found out about it or smelled Krushki's blood being spilled, I don't know. But, like, he found him, scared the 2 dudes off, brought the bloody chunklets back, and basically resurrected him. But he kept his soul from his body and is like, okay, I can give you your soul back, but I don't have any more magic shirts, and as long as you don't have a soul, you can't be killed. Okay. So hold on. Actually, I had to write this down because it's so fucking insane. Okay, so the dragon puts Krushki's soul inside of an egg, inside of a duck, inside of a rabbit, and inside of a goat. And then Krushki takes the goat to what I can only assume is Yggdrasil, because that's where, like, it's an environment we've been before. So I'm just going to assume it's Yggdrasil. I'm pretty sure that wasn't in the original myth. It's just Mignola tying this into his own mythos. So he picks the goat to Yggdrasil, and just, which actually does make sense, because in Darkness Calls, like the Baba Yaga, like when Hellboy was fighting Kroshki, the Baba Yaga was like breathing into the mouth of a goat to give him more power. So like I can only assume that's the goat that had his soul in it. Mythology is fucking weird, and I love it, and I love that Mignola is embracing that weirdness into these stories. So that's the whole thing. So that Kroshki, completely soulless, figures, okay, time to get some fucking revenge. He goes back, kills the two dudes that were dragging his bloody chunklets away, killed the guy his wife was going to convinced to carry the thing out, and then kills his wife. And that's how the story ends. Which, you know what? Yeah, cool. I am completely in favor of this. Fuck them. But yeah, like I'd have to read the story of Kroshki myself, but I completely believe everything that happened in here is part of the actual myth. And like aside from the place Kroshki hiding the goat that held his soul being Yggdrasil, I'm pretty sure that's just to tie into what Mignola wrote before. Like everything, like from the research that I've done into certain mythologies, it completely stands to reason that everything is from the original myth, and I just kind of fucking love that. So I can foresee a possible problem with Hellboy trying to raise an army of magical creatures to fight Nimue. He tends to kill them a lot. So I kind of left a sort of important part from the last issue out. During one of the adventures in between when Hellboy left the BPRD in this storyline, Hellboy sort of found himself on this weird island where he kind of died, and a dude was born from his blood, and he was basically trying to do what Hellboy was supposed to do but refused to do, which is try and end the world. And that's actually part of the reason why Queen Mab at least partially blamed Hellboy for what's happening right now. She didn't completely blame him, because she knows he didn't mean for any of this to happen. It's just sort of the weird circumstances constantly surrounding him that's eventually led to all this happening. And I'm pretty sure that guy that was made from Hellboy's blood, he's the one who gave, I'm just gonna keep calling him the pig dude because I keep forgetting his name, who gave the pig dude the blood that raised Nimue back up. So the little goblin dude that appeared at the last issue, he basically introduces himself as a duke of some place. I don't know where the fuck it is. It's in England. I know that because he calls himself an Englishman, and he says that he recognizes Hellboy as an Englishman, but Hellboy obviously considers himself American. But he leads Hellboy and Alice off, and they're talking a little bit, and Alice mentions how Queen Mab says that he died, and she asks, "What's it like?" And he doesn't really give her a solid answer. Like, he says that it hurt, but she wanted to know what's it like when you're dead. But like I said, he doesn't really answer, because little goblin dude gets their attention and brings them to this particular place. And after the little goblin dude leads them somewhere, he stops and asks Hellboy, does he know where the Dane Hills at Lancastershire are? And Hellboy mentions that he was there a couple of years ago in '62, and he fought and killed an old cannibalistic hag named called Black Anais. And turns out the goblin dude actually like worked for her or was part of her kingdom or whatever. Point is, a bunch of other goblin dudes come up and all attack Hellboy and Alice, and Hellboy is obviously just down to fight whatever because he's Hellboy. That was another thing. Yeah, I forgot to mention this also. Like obviously Hellboy beat the shit out of all the giants, but part of what is sort of like that's what he is. He's Hellboy. He fights giants. But part of the problem was the dude born from Hellboy's blood sort of awakened the Anung Unrama part of Hellboy's self. The murderer, the murderous rage, and all that crap. And there's a flashback at the beginning of this issue where Hellboy's fighting he's killed all the giants, and his horns are growing. Like I'm pretty sure that didn't actually happen, or if it's just, or maybe it did happen, and Hellboy's just remembering it like that. But it's like it's part of his demon father sort of coming through, and that being kind of an issue. And Queen Mab even mentions that this is going to be a little bit of an issue for you going forward. I wanted to point that out. So all the little goblin people like attack Hellboy, and he fights most of them off, but like one manages to hit Alice with a poison arrow, and the dude is like, "Oh, she's gonna die! Fuck you, she's gonna die!" But then like these fucking doves come out of nowhere and start pecking the shit out of the goblin, and he falls off, and they drive all the goblins away, and like Alice is still gonna die. But they the doves turn into three women, and they're like, okay, look, yeah, she's gonna die, but don't worry, we can take you to our queen or whatever. Like I don't remember what exactly it said, but like we can take you to someone who could heal her. So just follow us, all right? But like, I mean, Hellboy he just got led somewhere by another magical creature who said, "Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna help you," and then he fucking ambushed him, and now his friend is gonna fucking die. So like he's wary, but like he doesn't really have much of a choice, and like throughout the entire fight, Alice is just like, "Oh well, like this is probably just some kind of mistake." Like Mab told him to bring us, told us to help him, and I was like, "Well, Mab fucking lied. Well, she's fucking Queen Mab. She doesn't lie." Like. I have to imagine that Alice has some sort of like ongoing, like maybe not ongoing, but previous relationship with Mab, where it's like she at the very least trusts Mab to a decent degree. So like I'm not entirely sure what's happening there, but I think it's kind of cool. And Hellboy just kind of has to trust that these three dove women aren't gonna fuck him over like the goblin dude did. Which, yeah, maybe not, but that's how the issue ends. So apparently, every issue is just gonna have these random backup stories of characters who previously were in Hellboy stories that were important, because we had the two-parter with Kroshki telling his backstory, and this time we have basically a random Baba Yaga story. I imagine it's going to tie into the Baba Yaga as we know her in the Hellboy comics, but it's just a random fucking story. This dude has a pet cat and a pet bird who can talk apparently and go out into the woods and get like firewood and shit for him, and he stays in his house. But they warn him that if the Baba Yaga comes, to hide himself and not make any noise. And if they do, and if he does, they'll come back and scare her off. And that's exactly what happens. Baba Yaga shows up 3 times. The first time the cat and the bird scare her off. The second time they do it, but the third time they can't get back to the cabin fast enough, and the Baba Yaga takes the dude away. So Baba Yaga goes off to Bald Mountain, which Again, I have to do some research to find out if that's a real place. Like, it might be, I don't know. So she goes to Bald Mountain, and it's the Witches' Sabbaths, and they're all doing their evil witchy party shit. But Baba Yaga's daughter, because she apparently has a fucking daughter, who knew? Baba Yaga tells her to cook the dude, so she'll have something to eat in the morning. And like the dude basically tricks the daughter into getting into the pot, and then cooks her, and then he just bails the fuck out. But then Baba Yaga comes in, sees the roasted human, and just chows the fuck down. And then Death shows up and said, "Oh hey, you just ate your kid." And then the dude presumably goes to a monastery and stays there for the rest of his fucking life. Because you just tricked the Baba Yaga into eating her child. You're going to want to not be anywhere she can find you. And a church is a pretty good place. So there was a backup story at the end of this issue too, but it didn't have anything to do with Hellboy or his mythology, so I'm not going to talk about it this time. So we get a little bit more information on Nimue and what she's been doing. Apparently she and Pig Dude are getting pretty close. She's promising them that she can give him whatever he wants. His original form. He wants to go back to his people, and he also wants to kill Hellboy. So she's having her witches try and track him down, and he's having the guys that the Pig Dude brought along with him to see her resurrection go out and look for him. So that's all happening. And then goes right back to Hellboy and the Dove Ladies and the dying Alice at this castle that is surrounded by fire because demons have been trying to get into it for the last 500 fucking years. And there's this dude who's like, he's a demon who has a giant hammer and is sort of in this like weird metal steampunky armor type thing. So they basically say like Hellboy pretty much intuits that like they could have just teleported them into the castle if they wanted to, just like they brought him to this bridge that's leading to it, but their lady who they refer to, who they work for, like she wanted Hellboy to fight this demon to get him off her fucking bridge, right? So that's basically what he does. Like he gives Alice to the Dove Women so that they can protect her, and he goes off to fight this demon, and he gets his shit kicked in. And one of the little imp dudes that are sort of flying around, just keeping an eye on things. They actually, like, one of them actually comes to Hellboy while he's fighting this demon, and basically tells him how to beat him. He has a ring from the House of Flies, which, if you are up on your Hellboy lore, from the story of the Chain Coffin, that's the house that Hellboy's father runs. So the little imp says, I'll tell you how to beat this guy if you remember me when you come back to your kingdom. And he said, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, he's probably in his mind, he's never gonna do that, so it's fine, whatever. But the imp tells him that if he breaks the ring from the House of the Fly, that all of the demon's power will go away and he can just beat him easily. So that's what he does. He breaks the ring and takes that dude's giant hammer, smacks him with it, then crushes his skull onto some rubble. Then Hellboy and the Dove Ladies bring Alice in and bring her to this dude with a chalice who he makes Alice drink from it, and she's better. And then Fucking Morgan Le Fay! Of all people, like, that's who the Dove women work for. Morgan fucking Le Fay shows up and just welcomes Hellboy to her. Yeah, like, he doesn't, like, she doesn't welcome him to her. She says, welcome home. Like, this is where he is supposed to be, because so much of this witch shit, like, this is now, like, the third famous witch that is been introduced in this story. Like, okay, like, I mean, it makes sense because it's the whole, like it's basically it's basically witch Game of Thrones. Like, whoever is going to rule over all the witches is gonna, like, I don't know. I don't know, maybe Morgan Le Fay wants to be the new Queen of Witches, I don't fucking know, but, like, yeah, Morgan Le Fay is part of this now. Then it goes back to Nimue and the pig dude, and some guy, and an emissary from, I didn't write it down. I don't remember what they're called, but they're like a race of creatures. They might be dwarves. I don't know. Like the ambassador looks vaguely dwarfish, and it mentions, and Nimue mentions, like, forging and shit like that. So, maybe they're dwarves. I don't know. But the ambassador says, "Okay, so our king is gonna fight with you. Like, he's down. He's gonna help you with whatever. Just call him up. He'll bring our armies to help you out with whatever. But he couldn't be here now. So I brought you this crown to sort of tide you over until we can actually come and help you." The Nimue is like, "Okay, cool. Like, I appreciate this. This is great. This is fine and everything like that. But okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this crown, smash it up, and turn it into a dagger, then kill your king. Right? So you kill your king, then you throw his heart into your forges, and you make another crown, and you carve into it the names Bab, Maka, and Morrigan. I mean, they're all spelled differently. That's basically what it is. It's Bab, Maka, and Morrigan, because she doesn't just want to be the Queen of Witches. She also wants to be the Goddess of War. So she's trying to make herself into the Morrigan. And okay, I get most of you might not have studied Celtic mythology enough to get that, but the Morrigan is essentially the goddess of war and death in Celtic mythology. She's basically trying to turn herself into that. So, okay, like, how many fucking stories do you have where the villain is trying to ascend to godhood? Like, that just happens so fucking often. But I can dig this at least. Like, okay, like, Morgan isn't fucking around. She means goddamn business. I actually really like Nimue in this. Like, the way she talks and how she interacts with other people is really cool. Like, she doesn't scream or anything like that. So, like, when she makes this declaration that she's gonna be the goddess of war, she isn't, like, screaming at the heavens and shaking her fist or anything like that. She sets the tree that she's been sitting on for the last couple of issues on fire, but that's about it. But she's very calm and neutral about everything. It's like, I really like this character. And, like, from what I've seen, this isn't how Mila Jovovich is playing the character in the movie. Like, I know I said I wasn't going to try and bring up the movie as much, but I can't, because, like, I can see why this isn't, like, from what I've seen of the movie, I can tell it's massively inferior to this. And that's really disappointing. You know, at the rating of this issue, I feel like I should be playing that Modest Yahoo song, King Without His Crown, over the issue transitions. So this episode is basically all exposition. You kind of get this a lot with Hellboy stories. There's a lot of minutiae and folklore and backstory to go into about a bunch of different stuff. So every once in a while, you just have to have huge blocks of text explaining what the fuck is happening. So like I said, Morgan Le Fay is the owner of the castle that Alice and Hellboy found themselves in. And I actually very falsely believed that Morgan was going to be part of this whole witch queen argument thing that Nimue is after. But I was actually wrong, and I can't believe I forgot that Morgan Le Fay is, of course, King Arthur's stepsister and the mother of his only son Mordred. And that obviously does come out because Excalibur is part of this, and Hellboy is, the rightful king of England and all that. So Morgan starts off by explaining that Mordred actually had 4 children, 3 sons that the survivors of King Arthur's Round Table hunted out and killed, but 1 daughter, who went on to have a daughter of her own, and then her daughter had a daughter, and then so on and so on and so on, until you get to Sarah Hughes, who is Hellboy's mother, and then explain the whole, everything that happened. She married Hellboy's father, repented, became a woman of God, had 2 other children who became nuns, but then when Hellboy's dad came and took her to hell, then Hellboy was born, and all that. But it does officially reveal that yes, Hellboy is the rightful owner of Excalibur and the rightful ruler of Britain. Something Hellboy kinda knew, but Alice didn't. She's kind of freaking, and she obviously is freaking out a little bit about this. But Morgan shows Hellboy and Alice throughout the castle, explaining certain stuff. Eventually, she brings Alice to a room and has her, just sit for a bit because she's still recovering from almost dying. Then actually takes Hellboy to a glen where Excalibur is resting, and says that if he wants an army to fight Nimue, he's going to have to pick up Excalibur. He does, obviously he doesn't completely want this because he's never wanted like a whole big destiny. He has a job. He's fighting monsters. He's good with that. All this destiny crap, he's always been annoyed by it, but it's kind of, but like, at this point, when it's staring you directly in the face, it's hard to ignore. And Hellboy is just kind of despondent because he's not entirely sure what he's supposed to do. But Morgan does eventually explain who Nimue is. If you know about the story of Merlin, Nimue was an apprentice and one of Merlin's lovers who betrayed Merlin and tried to and learned all of his secrets, betrayed him, and then trapped him underneath a tree for supposedly all eternity, or at least until now. Then in this, she became the Queen of Witches. But all the power and knowledge and all the secrets that Merlin taught her, it's opened up her mind so that she could hear like the earth and the air and just all sorts of different cool magical shit. But it also, of course, opened her up to the Ordru Jihad, and hearing its voice drove her nuts, and it led to the witches that she ruled over, turning on her, killing her, and chopping her up into different pieces. But the pieces actually kept trying to find each other, so they eventually just gathered her all up into a box and hid her somewhere, and that's where the pig dude found her. So like that's Nimue's whole thing, and this is when they finally reveal that yes, this is in fact Nimue. After Morgan tells Hellboy all of this, he flashes back to the fight with the giants, and in an earlier issue, I wasn't sure if it was just like something that was going on in his head that his horns grew, but no, his horns actually, like, after he was done going ape shit on all the giants, his horns actually did grow back. And he had like a moment of clarity where like, what the fuck is happening? What am I doing? And then he breaks them off again. And in the pages where it's showing all of this, it's actually showing passages. It's actually showing passages from Revelations. But after Hellboy like sits on it a little bit, it's like when Morgan takes Hellboy to where the sword is. Like there's a big beautiful field. It's full of flowers and a stream and all that. But once the conversation is done and Hellboy has to sit and digest all this, like Morgan is a skeleton and the field is dark and all the plants and flowers and shit are dead. So, and Hellboy actually does ask, why does she care about about whether or not Nimue actually succeeds and does destroy the world with her army? And she's just like, I don't really care if I don't really care what happens with Nimue. My son was supposed to sit on the throne. Someone from his bloodline has to. Like, she doesn't really care about Nimue or anything that she's doing. She just wants someone from her line to be the king. So that's kind of cool. Like, and it also kind of fits in with how Morgan Le Fay is usually portrayed. Like if it wasn't Hellboy doing this, she probably wouldn't care. I doubt she'd actively help Nimue, but she'd probably just sit on the sidelines and just let it happen. But the fact that Hellboy is part of this and Hellboy is her direct descendant, then she, at the very least, wants him to be the King of England. So there's that. Holy shit, I'm only on the 7th issue. This is gonna be a long fucking video. So this issue starts off with Hellboy walking back to Alice's room after his conversation with Morgan Le Fay, and he's sort of going over everything that she said in his head, sort of still trying to process everything, like being the rightful king of England, what's raising the army with Excalibur would actually mean for him and everything else. When he does finally get to Alice's room, she kind of pieces together that Morgan was showing him Excalibur, and she has it in her head that she knows from the conversation with Queen Maeve that Hellboy was sent to Earth to destroy the planet, and she thinks that if he takes up Excalibur and uses it to fight Nimue, then that means that basically his destiny will be canceled out by what is obviously a good destiny, that he's going to be the King of England and use Excalibur and save the world and everything like that. It's kind of getting more and more obvious that Hellboy and Alice are really into each other, and Alice actually has a dream where she's basically in the exact same place that Hellboy was in at the beginning of the second issue, with all the knights and shit, but King Arthur is like standing in there and telling him that she's just as important to the sword as Hellboy is. So, like, that's going to be a thing now? But once Alice goes back to sleep and Hellboy is alone with his own thoughts again, he hears wolves howling. And he goes off to investigate things, and he sees the actual wild hunt, because the wild hunt isn't just a bunch of assholes who go out and fight giants whenever they show up. The wild hunt is an actual myth of a ghostly procession of hunters and wolves who go about the lands at the time of Judgment Day and crap like that. And like, people always say that there's a bunch of different people who are at the head of the wild hunt, and some guy who is talking to Hellboy names off a few people who some people believe that it is, including King Vold, who Hellboy actually did meet in a previous story once. But Hellboy mentions that some people think that the devil is the head of the Wild Hunt, but the guy who, if you haven't read Hellboy in Hell, I'm not gonna reveal who this was, but you do find out in that story. The guy mentions that it can't be Satan because Satan has been asleep for thousands of years, and that he says that Hellboy will one day go to hell, kill Satan, take up his father's sword, raise an army of lost souls in hell, break down the barriers between Earth and hell, and destroy everything with the army. And he also says that picking up Excalibur will be the first part of that. Like once he gets Excalibur, then eventually he'll get his father's sword, and all of that shit will happen. So it's the usual. You're destined to do this one thing, and fuck you if you don't want to, sort of thing. It's the kind of shit Hellboy's basically been dealing with ever since the series began. And to make it even worse, like this dude makes Hellboy's reflection appear and start attacking him, and Hellboy actually has to fight his own reflection while all this information is getting dumped on him, but he's just fighting back, and it's really fucking cool. Like, Mignola does a great job staging this fight, and it's really cool and exciting, and the reflection of Hellboy just gets gnarlier and bigger and more demonic and shit and all stuff. Like, it's really fucking cool, and like, it's not an illusion because they damn near destroy the fucking castle. Once Hellboy realizes what's happening, like it does stop, and he has to take a minute to realize, holy shit, what the fuck is happening? And now he's really worried about Alice because basically there was a giant fucking fireball going throughout the entire goddamn castle. So, I mean, there's that. Oh, right, okay. Fuck. I almost forgot this. When Hellboy goes to check on Alice at first, when he first goes into a room, he actually sees Vasilisa, who was a character from the Darkness Calls storyline, who was really important to him in that, and she just tells him to be careful before disappearing, and he has the whole conversation with Alice. So, like I said, this story is just wrapping up and calling back to a bunch of different stuff in the Hellboy series so far, and just bringing everything together into one insane conclusion. So I'm really glad that I am able to just read this all at once, because there was actually like a 2-month break in between the 5th and 6th issues. And I can't imagine, like, being a reader getting the singles and not being able to just jump right into the next issues to find out what the fuck is happening and everything like that. So yeah, this is it's getting up to the conclusion now. Just one more issue. Jesus fuck, this is fucking long. And Hellboy Wild Hunt finally comes to a close in not exactly an anticlimax, but more of a build-up for the next story. So this issue starts off pretty much exactly where the last one left. Hellboy just fought his shadow or reflection or whatever the fuck. Point is, he got into a big fight. There was a massive fireball, and yeah, Alice got caught in it. Vasilisa actually comes back and has a fairly in-depth conversation with him, and she asks him why. Like, Alice in the last issue asked why he didn't pick up Excalibur, and Vasilisa pretty much asked the exact same question. Hellboy kind of brushes aside the question, saying like, "Well, Morgan fucking Le Fay asked me to do it, so like, how can I even trust that shit?" But Vasilisa calls him out on it. She says it's bullshit, which yeah, he is. He brings up the whole him going nuts while fighting the giants thing, and he points out that like he did it with an old rusty piece of shit giant sword. What's he gonna do when he gets fucking Excalibur in his hands? You know. And with everything with everything that's happened, everything he just went through, he's more scared than ever that what people have been saying, what's the whole Destiny stuff he's been going through ever since Seed of Destruction is actually going to happen. And Vasilisa actually sort of points out that he's so eager to believe everything bad that people say about him, and it actually has a really good full-page spread of all the people that have told him that he's going to destroy the world. Rasputin, Hecate, even Mabe. All these different people pointed out all the shit that he's going to do once he gets to the point where he needs to fulfill his destiny. And even the guy from last issue telling him that once he picks up Excalibur, it's only going to lead to getting his father's sword and doing all of that. It's blocking out all the good things that people have said about him. All of his friends in the BPRD, and more specifically, everything Alice has said good about him. And she points out that Alice only saw good in him and wants Hellboy to see the good in himself, and he actually does that. He does eventually. Alice was incinerated. When Hellboy was fighting the giant, the evil version of himself, the giant fireball that went to the castle. Yeah, Alice was incinerated. So, but she's not dead, not technically. So Hellboy picks up Excalibur. Yep, proving that he is the King of England, and it actually has an audience, like a bunch of different characters who have been watching him for some time now, including the Baba Yaga, actually witness him picking up the sword, because this is the big prophecy and shit. This is what was always supposed to happen. So they're witnessing something that was always, it's like when you see, when something is prophesied and something is actually going to happen, you're going to have a fucking audience, But then Alice and Hellboy, Alice is brought back or something, I don't know. They're plopped back into the hillside where they were supposed to meet Queen Maeve. And Alice mentions that she fell asleep because she was waiting for Queen Maeve, so she doesn't remember anything that happened after that. And Hellboy is just fucking overjoyed and he gives her a big hug and everything because she's fucking alive now. So he basically fills her in on everything that happened, including getting Excalibur, meeting Morgan Le Fay, the army of Britain's noble dead that he's supposed to command to fight Nimue. All of that happened, and they just kind of walk off into the sunset with Hellboy just lazily twirling around Excalibur. And so Hellboy's the rightful King of England now. So that's happening. Then it goes to other places I'm pretty sure it is a dwarf by now, that ambassador dude that came to Nimue with the crown. I'm more certain now that was in fact a dwarf. So he basically did what she asked. He killed his king and forged the crown for her. That will essentially turn her into the Morrigan. Nimue actually comes into contact with, not she doesn't go to Morgan Le Fay's castle, but she contacts her psychically or magically or whatever. They talk to each other, and it's what the fuck, bitch? What's up? And it's like, no, yeah, I gave Hellboy the sword. What do you want to do? And she's just like, okay, no, it's fine, it's fine. I mean, I don't have my army yet, but it's fine, it's cool, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. So yeah, Nimoy's panicking a little bit, and and like the cool, calm personality that I've kind of liked up until this point sort of breaks down because the pig dude is like, okay, Hellboy has a sword now. He's gonna get his army. You gotta turn me back to normal. And then when Nimoy doesn't say anything, it's like, oh yeah, so you can't turn me back to normal. It's like, and she freaks out, and like that one hints it out, like causes her to freak out and basically kick her out of the army. So and teleports the few people that have gathered, like the witches and the few people who have gathered around her, teleports them all away from him. So now he's alone. And then turns out the Wild Hunt guys, the first dudes at the beginning of the story, yeah, they come back in the last few pages of this, where basically some god or spirit or whatever the fuck, or demon, probably demon, or whatever the fuck, like came to them in like the late 1800s and said, okay, here's the deal. Someone's gonna get Excalibur. You're not gonna want him on the crown. You're not gonna want him on the throne. You're not gonna want to have him be King of England. But he's going to fight an army. He's gonna have an army. He's gonna fight another army. And there's gonna be the war to end all life on Earth, right? So once the dude who gets Excalibur dies, get his right hand, and you will be in charge of all humanity. That's what their whole thing is. Like I was actually wondering what the purpose of these dudes were. Other than to bring the whole giants thing into the whole equation, because like the giants were like the first vanguard of Nimoy coming back, and I figured that was just a way of introducing Hellboy to the concept of Nimoy's army. But no, they're in this. Like they are part of it. They are a big fucking part of this. So so I was actually a little wrong. I thought this was the story that was going to lead into Hellboy in Hell. It's not. The next storyline is the Queen of Blood or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but no, it was the Blood Bride or the Devil's Bride or something like that. So yeah, that's where that's the lead up into Hellboy in Hell. But this was a good fucking book, man. This was holy shit. Like I feel like a lot of different all the callbacks could have been sort of like in a mainstream comic, like something from DC or Marvel. I feel like all these different callbacks could be seen as sort of fan servicey, like they're not actually servicing the plot. They're just, hey, look at this thing, but not like everything in this book. It seems purposeful. Like even if when you're first reading through it and you're not sure what it all means, when you get to the end, it's like okay, I see where this all ties in. And it's actually kind of interesting because I have read like at least the first storyline from Hellboy in Hell, and a lot of the stuff that was in that like is set up in this. So like going back to this after reading that, it's a really interesting experience, and just seeing how fucking well all of it fits together. Like Mike Mignola is a fucking genius, dude. This was so fucking good. So I feel like I gotta read the next issue now. Like, I don't know if it's gonna be for Halloween or if I'm gonna make a video about it, or if I'm just gonna read it for my own sake. But I gotta read the next story arc now. So yeah, I might know Mercy Mad Hatter. I'll see y'all later.